5 years ago, I had this idea for a creation that is partially ephemeral. Existing only briefly would make it special, marking its place in time temporarily. But I always failed at bringing this idea into reality, until I got a request, and I decided to try again. But first, we need to start back at the beginning. A while ago, a good friend of mine asked me to make him a piece of art. He didn't tell me what he wanted. All he said was, "I just want something made by you." Now that seems like an easy prompt, but it's actually really difficult to decide what to make when it's open-ended. It's part of the reason that I've put off this project for months. That is, until I had an idea. The lighthouse. It's one of my earliest ideas that I've never been able to bring into reality. What this idea was is to have a drawing of a lighthouse that is seemingly normal, but at the top there would be an additional mini prism. For a lot of the day, it would just be a nice clean drawing, something nice and handmade to sit on the wall. But as the sun shifts and the lighting starts to change, the piece would seemingly come alive with light when the sun catches it just right. This would only be momentary though, just giving you a brief moment of magic before disappearing once again. It's meant to be like Night at the Museum, but for art. It comes alive for a special moment before returning to normal again. But the feeling that this project is trying to capture is difficult to fully express. To sum up the project in one line, it's meant to emphasize the ephemeral nature of life, that things change and nothing is forever, and that's a good and bad thing. So it's important to enjoy moments while they're around, because oftentimes it feels like life is going by at a terrifyingly quick pace. What seems like yesterday was actually years ago, and now it's just a nostalgic memory. I used to hate the feeling of nostalgia. It always seemed like this cruel feeling to have. The longing for a time or a memory that you'll never be able to visit again. You can get close, but it'll never be the exact same. As I grow older now though, I realize that nostalgia is actually a wonderful thing. Having memories and experiences that I value so much that I crave to have them once more. I can't think of a better problem to have. There is a quote from Dr. Seuss that seems especially true now, that you never know the value of a moment until it becomes a memory. It doesn't solve the problem of time constantly moving forward though. Decades of memories, experiences, and friendships that all seem to go by so quickly, with worries that the future will go by just as fast. Time is not something that you can fight though. So the best that we can do is to make sure that we enjoy and soak up all of the little fleeting ephemeral moments before they become a memory. While thinking of a way to bring this idea into reality, I came across a good example of this feeling that I want to capture in a sunrise or sunset. And bear with me here because I understand it is cheesy and it is cliche and it is overdone, but that is because it is this shared human experience in the world, that everyone understands them, that the world just moments before is regular and normal, but in the blink of an eye, it all changes and it forces you to enjoy it while it's around. All of this though is still just a big fluffy art idea. How do we actually put that feeling into something? How do you make that real? How do you make a sunset that you can fit in the palm of your hands? I have a couple of ideas, which is good because what I didn't mention earlier is that the idea of the lighthouse art is nearly impossible to achieve. To even see if it would work, I tried taking the exact coordinates of where I live and then plug that into a sun chart to try and understand the math of how a prism would work within that, but then also to get the light to exit along such a thin angle to have it spill out over the wall correctly, and then also split into all of the colors that could also adapt to the changing elevation of the sun throughout every day of every year with enough accuracy that the light would exit at exactly the right angle to make it look realistic. Look, I'm insane. I'm not that insane though, and I don't have the brain capacity to figure that out. So I tried some other materials too, but nothing was really working for this vision that I had in my head. Larger prisms didn't fit the proportions that I needed. I tried stuff like the backs of CDs. I looked online to find different films, and nothing really worked for this lighthouse idea. But it did give me another one. While looking into dichroic film, I found this. And part of their SEO was calling this stuff chameleon film. And seeing that word sparked an idea. What if I make a little 3D chameleon out of this stuff? It still fits all of my project parameters. It's small so it can be shipped. It's whimsical. You can put them anywhere so it's adaptable. And moreover, I think it's just a cool, captivating idea of a reverse chameleon, that instead of adapting and blending into its environment, it changes the environment to match it instead, shooting off vibrant colors everywhere. So I got to modeling, which was a little bit tricky because chameleons are kind of weird looking little creatures. And I can say that because I'm a weird looking little creature too, but they have a lot of defining characteristics about them that is hard to express in a low poly 3D style. And that style is important, but I'll talk about that a little bit more later on. So while I was modeling this thing, I devised a system that I could get both the detail, the structural stability of this, and the original idea all together in one piece. With there also being this sub-conceptual theme of time constantly moving, I wanted that to reflect in the design as well. Imagine this creation in 3 layers of skin, each one blending into one another and superimposed on top of each other. There is a solid copper skin, a copper wireframe, and then the colorful film. They all work and blend into each other, like the outer layers are slowly eroding and wearing down to reveal the other layers beneath. And even the copper itself will also age over time, from this shiny coat to oxidizing and changing color as time goes on. For the colorful film, I planned it out to be cut down into strips and then bent into the angles needed. I mentioned earlier the low poly style, and it's the best way to get this to work, since I was planning to try and heat form this stuff around more curvilinear shapes, but I learned that exposing it to high heat deteriorates the film coating, so that idea was thrown out pretty fast. Dichroic film is an insanely cool material though. When you hold it up to the light, all of the light that passes through it gives off these blue and green tones, but all of the light that is reflected are the warm colors. After I finished up the exoskeleton design, I 3D printed 1/2 and got all of the supports off. And I do realize I said that this was going to be copper and this is plastic, but there's a little magic we can do to remedy that. Electroplating. Now, I've never done this before, but I did watch a 3-minute video in 2x speed, so I'm basically an expert now. But even still, I wanted to try a small scale test to begin. First, we fill up a container with vinegar. Next, we add some sacrificial copper. And at this step, we just add the electricity and we let it sit. And after waiting a while, we have a copper electrolyte to use. And before anyone says anything, yes, it does look exactly like Glacial Freeze Gatorade. And no, you should not drink it. And yes, I do realize it is a bad day to be drinking actual Glacier Freeze Gatorade out of a matching container, but do not worry, I am responsible. I put labels on them, and I labeled this one IG because it's Gatorade. And I labeled this one 16 for the 16 fluid ounces of stuff you really should not drink. The final step now is to paint the test piece with some special paint. With electroplating, you are coating an object with the actual metal you are using. So I have to make the piece conductive so electricity will flow through it. And for that, I'm using a special graphite infused paint that I have mixed in with some acetone to thin it out to cover the surface. With that done, the setup is complete. And now all we need to do is to wait and see if it works. So originally this was going to be a little time slot ad for something else, but that ended up not panning out. So instead, I'm going to use this time as an advertisement for myself. If you're interested in more behind the scenes stuff, you can go check out my Instagram. I'm trying to post there more, I promise. But there's a lot of cool things that are coming shortly. There's a 100K merch thing that I'm really excited for. I think it's really cool, but yeah, I'm biased. What do I know? There are 2 more videos coming from my computer setup that I'm building right now. There's a lot of cool stuff that's happening. He drank the wrong liquid. Not again. I let it run for about 45 minutes, and when I pulled it out of the bath, it was completely unchanged. There were a lot of particulates in the bottom of the bath, however, but I had seen some like these when I was first making the copper electrolyte and didn't really think much of it and strained it into another mason jar with a coffee filter. I was guessing that maybe having an aluminum wire instead of copper was hurting the process, with aluminum being less conductive, so I swapped that out for a copper wire and then attached that to the part. I then redid the setup, got a second scrap piece, and went through the same process. But something weird happened when I first put it into the bath.
Well, that's not right.
It looked like the paint was flaking off, which was odd because I had let this dry for 24 hours prior. I had done 2 coats before putting this in, and the only thing that I could guess was that there's air trapped in the 3D print. And when putting it underwater, it forces its way out, flaking off the paint in the process. It wasn't a lot of the paint though, so I brought the electricity back in once more. But another 30 minutes later, I pulled it out once again, and there was not a single piece of copper on here. It's pretty obvious at this point that something is wrong. Turns out maybe I can't watch a 3-minute video and then become an expert on something. Maybe the voltage is not enough, maybe the electrolyte's bad, maybe the paint is just a faulty batch. I don't know, but there's actually a bigger problem here right now, and it's this. You see, when I designed this, all of the film is adhered from the interior only to mask all of the joints. So the process was this. First, electroplate all of the parts, pull them out, add the film to the inside, and then solder the pieces together, and then finally electroplate the seams a second time to hide all of those solder connections. To do that, however, the final step was going to be to submerge the entire piece, including the film. And there's something about the process that the film just does not like. It just looks permanently dirty now. I can't scrub any of this clean, nothing I do works. It's kind of just stuck like this. Now the question is, do I work this out or do I find another option? And at this point, I think I need to find another option because I'm already so far behind. You know, this was supposed to be a Christmas gift. I'm a little late already. So I took a couple days to explore other options and I decided that I want to paint the exoskeleton instead. And this copper paint should hopefully keep it closer to the original plan. With electroplating, you generally want a smoother surface, but with painting, I can do whatever I want. And I think it will look really good to have all of these parts be a rougher texture to really contrast with the smooth film in the end piece. Once that's done, we can apply the copper spray paint. Now it's currently not a great day outside, so I'm gonna make some bad decisions here. I'm gonna use a cardboard box and then temporarily convert the air extraction from my laser cutter to make a janky spray booth that I can take all of the fumes and push them outside. This is not great, but it's more making the best of a bad idea. Unless of course you're my landlord that's coming across this video, then in that case, this is all fake. None of this is real. This is all AI generated video, and none of this ever happened in my living room. This is a gift for a friend, but maybe it's just as much a gift for me. Finally being able to make some version of this project and helping me reflect on the larger brief chapters that make up my life. It's odd how such a tiny little project has made me think back on my memories, my friendships, or my existence, and realizing how much value there was with the late night hangouts with friends, or the people I met in college, or the soccer team I was on as a child. It all has a part and contributed to who I am today, and I often worry that I didn't appreciate it all enough in the moment. So hopefully this acts as a little reminder to be more conscious of those fleeting times and valuing them in the moment before it's a memory that you look back on a decade later. This project is special to me, but it's also why I like making stuff and sharing it with other people, since everybody will understand it a little bit different. Maybe you see this the way that I do, or maybe you don't. Maybe all you see when you look at this is an overglorified sun-catcher lizard. But all I can feel when I look at this now, though, is gratefulness in my nostalgia. Grateful for my memories and the people in them. And because I know time will never slow down, it makes me appreciate the ephemeral nature of life a little more. And in the end, I'm just happy that the universe let me be here to experience some of it. Even if it is all only temporary.